Okay, so in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making some modifications in this chamfer area. I had someone on my Instagram, I forget their exact username, I'll put them up on screen. They mentioned being able to do something like this to this area. And so I threw that in the cam and CAD, and it would work, and it would make this area a little less aggressive. So I'm going to be running that today and see how that batch turns out. I'm going to make one set of handles with that. And if I like it, I'll keep running it. And if I don't, then I guess I'll stick where I'm at or maybe do some other modifications. So that's what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to start with these. I've already machined op1. Since we're not doing anything different on the op1s, it doesn't make any difference what's here. And so we're going to go ahead and throw these in the fixture. If you're curious, if you're interested in the machining process of these handles, then go ahead and check out, I have a video on my channel of making these. I believe the video is called I Hate Machining Titanium. I hate it much less now that I've gotten better at it, but it's still kind of a nightmare. So go check out that video. We're going to start by throwing these in this upper pallet or this upper fixture. And then this lines up on here, and then all the screws go in. I'm not going to use this one. I actually have one preloaded with screws. So we're going to go ahead and screw that in. It's kind of a bad angle, sorry. Yes, and this will go right there. Doing this around a camera is way more difficult. That goes in there. Then that goes in there. First step is to go ahead and get this on the pallet. Make sure the top is up or there'll be some issues because you'll machine them upside down. Line these up. I'm going to grab my pins. They're over on the counter over there, and then put 2 pins in and put 2 screws in, and it stays nice and tight. All right, so this pin goes in right there, and then I put this one in right here. Yep, there it goes. So I use this, so it's just a bolt, and then these are threaded pins, so they can come out pretty easily. That one's in tight. You have to take them out in order. But using threaded pins has been really helpful because it can be a pain to get this off, and being able to just pull pins straight out is very handy. Although this is a newly machined pallet, and I've had way more trouble pulling these pins out than I had on my old pallet. So I have to figure out why these pins are way tighter than the other ones. They're reamed to the same size, and it's the same size, but these are way tighter pins. Not sure why. Anyways, the tightness of the pins doesn't particularly matter for this. As long as it holds it, it's just kind of a little bit more of a pain getting it apart again, which is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. So now I grab my screws, and these go in like this, and then these get tightened down. These are just 1/4 screws with an Allen head, so they're pretty easy to use. And they're countersunk, so I don't run into them on the machining. And 2 of these are plenty good for this pallet. I have room for 4, just in case I strip one of these or something like that, or in case I needed extra, but 2 is totally fine. And these hold it just fine, and I haven't had any issues with like chatter or anything on this pallet from this sub pallet moving. I have had some issues with the chatter just on machining feeds and speeds. I'm only holding these at 2 points and not a middle point. I've had some small issues with that, nothing that big. Now you can see the pallet, and it's time to throw it in the mill. I might take these off first, I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. I'm just machining op 2, and these won't be in the way. Okay, so now it's time to load up the next pallet. I went ahead and took the last one out, and with the Pearson pallet system, it is super easy to go ahead and throw in a pallet. It is as simple as that. Pallet is in, push the button, make sure your pallet's down and isn't coming up, and you're good to go. Then I'm going to take out the tapping head. Okay, actually, let's go on a little bit of a tangent. This is and head off. Now I'm going to run them, so if you want to watch a time lapse or how it works, go check out the other videos on it. I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so they now have been machined, and you can see it. They're machined all the way up, so you can see exactly what that looks like. Let's go ahead and get these apart and see how everything went. So as you can see, taking these apart is really easy. It's as simple as just untwisting a couple of screws. And there we go. I think it looks a little boring up here. without that, so I might extend this channel, which will help with that. I do like how that looks, and if they flip well, then I'm going to keep it. Overall machining looks pretty good. Some very slight chatter marks there, but nothing that won't be taken out during tumbling. And then the top of this machined pretty well. There's some burrs on this side, which I kind of knew it would happen because this wall is really thin. So I'll just knock those down and then knock them down in tumbling. So let's get the rest of this apart and get this put together to see how I like it. Okay, that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. Look at that. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I like how they look. I'm not totally sold on it versus that. I think this caps it nicely, so there's a nice middle. So there's a flare there, there's a flare there, and it kind of just, it caps it, right? It finishes it. This one, that doesn't happen, and that has its own aesthetic, which is nice, but I don't know if it's as nice. So maybe I'll just make it smaller or something. We'll see. I might do something with this. If it flips really well, though, it's function over fashion. So let's get these Scotch-Brite. It did dead. Scotch-Brite it did. Okay, so I've got it done here. You can see how that turned out. They're a little oddly shiny because they've been Scotch-Brited and not tumbled. You can see how it looks without them. The overall profile. The overall profile is very different. Like, those look really different. It's not just the blade, but like, I'm not sure what I think about it. I like the look of this way better than I like the look of this, but this does feel better, and I can't really deny that. So maybe, I don't know, because I feel like this being in an enclosed area is really helpful. And so maybe I'll put an aggressive chamfer on this, so it'll be like this, and then a small chamfer step down. I'm not sure, because I do like this, but I'm not a huge fan of the look. Anyways, I'm not going to be running more handles today. You might be able to hear the thunder. My power went out a minute ago. And so I'm not going to risk running handles in the middle of a thunderstorm. I don't want the mill to shut out. So anyways, let me know what you all think about this, whether you prefer this or this. It does feel better while flipping, right? There's nothing up here to catch or whatever. So it does feel good. But I'm not sure if aesthetically I prefer it. Because it's not like that much better. It's the point where it's basically not noticeable when flipping unless you're flipping like right up on there. And the aesthetics is, in my opinion, close to way better. And so I'm having a really hard time deciding which I prefer.